Imagine you are a Benedictine monk in the late 1500s when the world is hurtling towards a new age. Uncharted corners of the world map are beginning to fill in more and more. As territories expanded westward, so did the influence of the Catholic Church. But then, just 13 days after taking office, the Pope suddenly died. With the unprecedented spread of Christianity in the new territories, this was, to say the least, the worst time for the papal seat to be vacated. The second papal conclave of the year is imminent. If in these times you have been a monk scholar who is charged with academic work that the Church expects you to do, while you may not be the greatest cleric, this will give you enough credibility to be granted access to one of the most extensive and exclusive archives in the world, the Vatican Secret Archives. And if, again hypothetically, that were you, you would undoubtedly one day stumble upon a 400-year-old document that supposedly foretold the fate of the great church. The document is a list of 112 short and cryptic phrases in Latin. Each one describes a future pope, starting with Celestine II in 1143. Spoken by Saint Malachy during his visit to the Vatican in 1139, the prophecy lay forgotten beneath the floors of St. Peter's Basilica. But much to your astonishment, opening the document you will find that every prophecy on this list was incredibly accurate. Each description matches a certain pope to your time. The late Pope Urban VII was the 74th, and all of you from that time expect the 75th to take office. However, there is more to it than that. The list also predicts popes yet to be elected, 37 more popes by the end of time, the time when the Last Judgment will come. Unfortunately, what we have told you is not a fictional story at all. In fact, this exact scenario happened to an actual monk in the late 16th century named Arnold de Vion. He was a Benedictine monk and historian who rediscovered the documentation of St. Malachy's 1139 prophecy while studying the Vatican archives. In 1595, de Vion included the list of future popes in his published work Lignum Vitae. Known as the Prophecy of the Popes, each phrase in it closely described a particular pope, corresponding to his number, whether in allusion to his birthplace, coat of arms, or personality. Sometimes it also described important events during the pontificate in question. For example, the pope to be elected at the Second Conclave in 1590, Pope Gregory XIV, was called Ex Antiquitate Verbis, which can be translated as from the Old City. Pope Gregory XIV's father, Francesco Sfondrati, was a senator of Milan. Milan, which was founded in 400 BC, is believed to be the ancient city in question. On the other hand, the next pope, Urban VIII, was named Lilium et Rosa, meaning lily and rose. During his pontificate, this pope had different relations with France and England, symbolized by the lily and the rose respectively. All the Latin phrases in the series are listed chronologically, covering a period of approximately 900 years from the time of St. Malachy. Each motto is brief, with almost no hints other than a few Latin words, all but the last. At the very end of the list is a longer line that reads, Petrus Romanus, qui pascet, ues in multis tribulationibus, quibus transactis civitas septicolis diruetur, and iudex tremendus judicabit populum suum, finis, which translated means this: Petrus Romanus will feed his sheep amid many trials, and when this is over, the city of the seven hills, that is Rome, will be destroyed, and the terrible judge will judge his people. End. In other words, Peter the Roman will probably be the last pope of the Catholic Church. Even more disturbing, the line adds a rather disturbing detail. Not only will Peter the Roman be the last pope, but his pontificate will witness the destruction of Rome and its condemnation. Is this ominous last remark a reference to the Last Judgment and the Apocalypse? If so, does this mean that the coming of Peter the Roman is a signal of the end times? And is Pope Francis the last pope? Before we delve into that though, let's look at the life of Saint Malachy, who is supposed to have spoken this prophecy. His real name was Mael Maedoc Ua Morgair, and he was the Archbishop of Armagh in Northern Ireland in the 12th century. A healer, miracle worker and prophet, Saint Malachy traveled throughout Europe and performed many miracles during his lifetime. His biographer, contemporary, and close friend was Saint Bernard. Among the people he healed was the son of King David I of Scotland. While serving as Archbishop of Armagh, St. Malachy traveled to Rome to request 2 wool palliums for the sees of Armagh and Cashel. During his visit to the 7 hills of Rome, St. Malachy received a prophetic vision that allowed him to see the future, specifically foreseeing the succession of the last 112 popes. Accordingly, he shared about the prophecy to several confidants, including Pope Innocent II. Although the prophecy was documented, it did not reappear until de Vion rediscovered it in 1590. But why was it not published for over 400 years? Why was the Church silent about it for so long? Why has such an important document, which tells the future of the Catholic Church and of humanity, been almost forgotten? For all the fear and panic this document has caused, there is one plausible explanation for it. It may have all been a very elaborate hoax, and by none other than Arnold de Vion himself. You might be surprised how something like this could turn out to be a giant fraud, especially since a respected Vatican scholar and historian was involved. I mean, what so much could he gain from creating a false prophecy? What was his purpose? On the face of it, none of this makes sense until you take a closer look at the tumultuous politics of the papal conclave. For those of you who are not familiar with it, the papal conclave is an assembly of the College of Cardinals to elect a new pope. In other words, it's an election of sorts, but there's more to it that we don't know. The Vatican is very secretive about exactly what happens during the conclave. In fact, while it lasts, the place where the cardinals gather is sealed off. No one can enter or leave until the new pope is elected. A papal conclave can last even several days. So with the election comes the political maneuvering. Since the dawn of the Roman Catholic Church, the pope has usually been elected by consensus of clergy and laity. Usually, whoever was more popular became pope. Later, however, the right to vote was limited to the cardinals and the electors. However, this did not prevent people in the conclave and those outside from trying to influence the outcome. After all, whoever is elected pope has power and influence that is international and can influence even kings. In fact, the Second Papal Conclave was quite remarkable in this regard. It was also when the first known direct intervention of a royal family took place. King Philip II of Spain sent 2 lists to the Vatican, one of the candidates he had approved and the other of the cardinals he had vetoed. Whether the College of Cardinals took note of this list, we will never know. But how did de Vion get involved in all this? Arnold de Vion had a friend who was also running for the papacy. Girolamo Simoncelli, a great-nephew of Pope Julius III, was one of the candidates to be the next pope after Urban VII. Hailing from Orvieto, Simoncelli is ideal for the motto ex antiquitate verbis, meaning from the old city. In Latin, Orvieto is called Urbs Vitus, literally old city. According to some historians, de Vion may have composed the elaborate prophecy and attributed it to St. Malachy in order to gain credibility to support his friend. But, as you may have guessed, Simoncelli did not become pope. He probably wasn't even on the list of main contenders. The papal throne went to Gregory XIV, who, coincidentally or not, was on King Philip II's list of pre-approved candidates. Well, even with a false prophecy, de Vion and Simoncelli don't get their way. This theory also seemingly puts to rest the debate over whether or not the prophecy is real. The chronicler of St. Malachy, St. Bernard, also mentions nothing about it. In most historical accounts and contemporary accounts of St. Malachy, he is primarily a miracle worker and not exactly a prophet. Most scholars and historians also agree that it was just an elaborate hoax by de Vion, and so that page of history is closed, at least until another earlier document comes to light. A letter from 1587 mentions the supposed prophecy. Included in its contents was the motto Derore Coeli, translated as "from the dew of heaven." If you recall, the motto "from the dew of heaven" traditionally referred to Pope Urban VII. In this document, however, it is a reference to Cardinal Giovanni Girolamo Albani, who participated in the 2 conclaves that elected Urban VII and Gregory XIV, respectively. Is it possible that this is just a coincidence? After all, such a short Latin phrase could have been used by someone else. But Albani was not a pope. The motto could only refer to the root of his name, Alba, which meant dawn. Furthermore, though rather conspiratorial, de Vion may have created the list long before he announced it. And could it be that Albani's supporters used the phrase to support his candidacy for the papacy? What if, like de Vion, Albani's entourage was among the few who knew of the existence of the prophecy hidden in the Vatican's secret archives? What if de Vion didn't create the document, but actually discovered it 400 years after the time of Saint Malachy? After all, is it all true? Did Saint Malachy see the Church's path to the end of the world? Whether he, de Vion, or even Albany's entourage created the list of future popes, the big question is, did any of it come true? Each of the phrases listed from Celestine II to Urban VII exactly matches the corresponding pope. The problem arises with Gregory XIV, since, as you will recall, the motto Ex antiquitate verbis would have fit Simoncelli better. But being from Milan, Gregory XV could still count as someone from the old city. As for the other 37 phrases, some connections are ambiguous, while others are really remote. But there are a number of them, especially about popes in the last century or so, that really hit right on target. The most egregious example may be the phrase religio depopulata, which literally translates to destroyed religion. It's a strange and ominous phrase, but even stranger is that Pope Benedict XV, who aligns himself with this motto, took the papal throne in May 1914. 1 month later, the First World War broke out. In his time, the Russian Revolution occurred, which led to the promotion of atheism in the country. On a lighter note, John XXIII, who held office between 1958 and 1963, was called Pastor and Nauta, meaning shepherd and sailor. Popes are traditionally called shepherds, and sailor is in reference to his title, Patriarch of Venice, a famous maritime city. Pope John Paul II was De Labore Solis, which can be translated as by the labor of the sun or by the eclipse of the sun. Surprisingly, John Paul II was born and buried during a solar eclipse 84 years apart. Pope Benedict XVI, dubbed Gloria Olivae or Glory of the Olive, worked with a focus on peace and reconciliation during his tenure. The olive is a symbol of peace. When Benedict XVI resigned in 2013, those who knew of the prophecy feared one thing. Benedict XVI is the 111th pope in the prophecy, which means the next one could be the last. But is Peter the Roman good or evil? If the calculations are correct, Pope Francis matches the 112th on the list. The pope will be Peter the Roman, the last pope. According to prophecy, he will oversee a difficult and turbulent time. After his term, Rome will probably be destroyed, and the sentence of the terrible judge will be carried out. Most people interpret this as the apocalypse mentioned in the Revelations and the final judgment of mankind by God. The question now is, will Peter the Roman be the ray of light for these difficult times, or will he cooperate with the powers of hell to bring us to our final damnation? To be fair, the prophecy does not mention whether Peter the Roman is good or evil. Most people tend to naturally prefer the first option, because just as St. Peter is traditionally considered the first pope and apostle who began the establishment of Roman Catholicism, so Peter the Roman is supposed to close the line on the papacy. Others, however, remain with a more sinister view of him. Either way, Peter the Roman should have arrived during a most tumultuous era for the Church. When Pope Francis took office in 2013, he shocked the world with his unconventional views and actions. For one thing, he chose a name that no pope had used before, Francis, in honor of Saint Francis of Assisi. Yet the faithful still associate his choice of name with Peter the Roman, since Saint Francis's father was named Pietro di Bernardone. Pietro in Italian means Peter. Pope Francis departs from the traditional views of the Catholic Church. He is often described as more liberal and progressive. For example, he is the only pope to allow the blessing of same-sex couples. He has also openly spoken out against the death penalty, over consumerism, etc. For many Catholics, Pope Francis stands as a humble but strong leader of the Church. However, not everyone perceives his pontificate in a positive light, or the current state of the Vatican as a whole. So, is Peter the Roman real? Is the prophecy even true? Are we really living on the verge of a biblical apocalypse? At this point, the answer to these questions depends on your personal and spiritual convictions. The source of the prophecy is a bit dubious to begin with. But because of the incredible accuracy of the recent past, which de Vion could not have known about, it is hard to dismiss lightly. For decades, long before Pope Francis took office, rumors of occult practices, hidden knowledge, and strange research had been circulating in the Vatican. But you'll learn more about that in the video you see on the left.